Well, good, still morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. As this is a lunch and learn, be sure you have your lunch or snacks or, like me, your coffee. Just a quick intro, and then we will get started. My name is Katie Klausner, and I am the Communications Program Manager for Accords, which for those who are not familiar with us, we are a health services outcome-based research group uniquely organized by several methodological cores and programs, and we are housed in the School of Medicine. So we basically provide a home for pragmatic research scientists, and we help support them from start to finish, whether from concept, idea, to funding, to results and outcomes. And as their new communication person, brand new position, I started almost a year ago with a goal to help promote the value of Accords across our campus, as well as nationwide. So social media plays a big part in that, especially Twitter. This little lunch and learn actually started as just for the Accords investigators and research staff, and as a casual training just to help them learn a little bit more about promoting themselves and their research. But our director, Dr. Allison Kemp, thought it would be useful to others, to which I immediately contacted Jewel in the Office of Communications, and here we are. Now, by no means do I profess to be a social media expert. I do enjoy constantly learning about it though, but I am no expert. However, I have worked with so many different social media platforms for years in many different industries since the days of MySpace and Flickr, not to age myself too much. But so that leads me to my excitement to introduce Jewel, who has been incredibly gracious with her time, her knowledge, her presentations. And Jewel, you want to share a little bit about yourself?
Sure thing. Thank you, Katie. And hello, everyone. It's great to be here and thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of background about me. My name is Jewel Medelis, and I'm the social media manager for the CU Anschutz Medical Campus within the Office of Communications. So essentially, I'm responsible for, managing, scheduling, strategizing, all of those things for all of the flagship CU Anschutz social media accounts. So, I'm currently running on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So I actually joined CU Anschutz team last April after spending 7 years working as a social media and communications manager at the University of Florida. And I'm very happy to be here in your wonderful state of Colorado. So thank you for having me.
Well, today's a warm day. You can say that today. So thanks, Jules. So let me preface that today's discussion is really just focusing on Twitter and a little bit of LinkedIn, but much of what we're going to share can also be applied to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and whatever else is looming around the next tech corner. Should you have any questions along the way, go ahead and post them in the chat box and we'll do our best to address as we go. But we do plan to have some time at the end to answer your questions. We are also recording this, I hope. Yes, we are. And we'll share the link afterwards along with a survey if you guys could help us, since this is kind of our first communications-based lunch and learn. Okay, Jewel, let's get started.
All right, so, what's the point of this presentation and what's the point of social media? Well, over 4 billion people are now on social, and between writing grants, teaching students, working with the public, conducting research, social media may appear as just another task to add to the list of so many things you have to do. However, in today's digital world, social media has become an essential part to everyone's daily lives. Here's some benefits of joining social.
Yep, whether the social is just for you, your department, or an entire organization, sharing information about yourself, your expertise, your work, your awards, publications, that is extremely key. Networking is also big, whether for job hunting, collaborating, or learning more about your industry. Social can also open doors to people and places you never thought might listen. It's a virtual platform for you to advocate and to present. And with all the changes that we've experienced this past year, having more and more virtual outlets can only help you professionally. And now is not the time to keep quiet or demonstrate humbleness. Now is the time to tell your story. You have the knowledge, especially as part of this phenomenal CU Anschutz team. Now prove your passions and your results online. And then obviously, this is the purpose why we're here today. This is key. You cannot tell your research story enough times. Whether it's the outcomes, the impacts, the process, the people, there's so many different ways that you can tell your research stories. So get it out there. I always go off of the 7 to 10 times rule, you know, the reach and frequency. So are you promoting your research in 7 to 10 different places or 7 to 10 different ways? That's where social can really help you out. So Jewel, you want to go over some of the common do's and don'ts next?
Absolutely. So before we dive into specific social media platforms, I just wanted to go over some basic do's and don'ts that are pretty evergreen and are a great way to get started. So a visual element. With the ability to scroll endlessly, the right visual element is key to, get the user engaged and draw attention to the users that are following you. If you don't have the capacity to share an image or a GIF, however, you can also rely on including some emojis to show off your personality or the auto-generated cards when sharing website links, which I will show you. All right, tagging. So tagging or mentioning other accounts will send notifications to them so they can see your post and share it to their wider audiences. Keeping your account active. I don't know how many of you all are on social, but have you ever visited an account and saw that the user hasn't posted in months? That's not the best look. Maintaining an active presence lets users know that you're not going anywhere. It helps to foster connections and grow your following as well. All right, and hashtags. Hashtags allow you to be part of the bigger conversation, especially on, Twitter and Instagram. Some particularly, hashtags related to the medical field are med Twitter, med student Twitter, and even more specific to a course faculty, for example, is pragmatic science, DI science, what have you.
And I just want to, can I just jump in real quick for the hashtags?
Yeah, for sure.
For those that are like, what is the hashtag? A hashtag is kind of like a popular topic, right? Would you describe it as that, Jewel? Is if it's a key topic or people can search by that hashtag and find all the conversation about it.
Yes, and it doesn't necessarily have to be popular. It could be your own hashtag, but when you are able to leverage and be part of the conversation with popular hashtags, that's just going to expand your reach exponentially.
Excellent.
Okay, ultimately, social is an opportunity to show who you are and explain why you do what you do. Some of our most successful posts have been ones that contain a human element, highlighting others' achievements, sharing stories of triumph, and overcoming adversity. Being authentic and genuine is a real element that can sometimes be a rarity in the age of digital influencers. All right, and now on to the don'ts. Even though I did say visuals are great, a blurry photo or one unrelated to your content also doesn't serve its purpose. All right, on to trolls. So a troll is an internet slang term. It's a person who tries to intentionally upset others on the internet. At my previous role, one of our most successful researchers on social media unfortunately gave in to the internet trolls and started responding and writing back to them. And rather than ignoring them, he fed fuel to the fire, only bringing them more attention than necessary. Okay, sharing content, especially in today's world, be sure to vet your sources prior to sharing them. And no surprise, we were just discussing hashtags. They are a great source to be part of those larger conversations. However, if you constantly write, as you can see here, too many hashtags in one place, it looks distracting in the post and it doesn't have that authenticity that you're striving for. I recommend, 1 to 3 hashtags per post. Similar to vetting your sources, be sure to check the hashtags that are trending or whatever other topics are trending prior to using them to ensure you know the potential underlying meaning behind them. And if for some reason you're here not for personal Twitter, but for division, department, school accounts, please visit here for our CU guidelines, and I will attach that in our social media chat here.
Yeah, and we have a couple of questions before we move on to the next slide.
Great.
So thank you, Jewel, on that. So actually, we're about to get to Twitter. So the first question is, if we're pretty new to social media, do you recommend we start with Twitter and then what next? Or as I'm guessing, it depends on our goals for most common goals and purposes.
Yeah, so I find that Twitter is one of the easiest and accessible ways for members of research communities, universities, professionals to connect and highlight their work, even make connections with others. So I think Twitter is a great starting point. As far as expanding, I think it just depends, like you said, on your goals and how much time you have too. I always recommend devoting your time to one platform and making sure you're able to, really make it grow and foster relationships before expanding on to the next. How do you identify a troll?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, they come in all shapes
They're
and
not hiding
sizes.
under a bridge. Are they hiding under a bridge and 3 goats are going across? Sorry.
I mean, it's pretty easy to identify if it's something unrelated to your content or if it even falls on the lines of bullying or harassment or any of those things which you can report within those social platforms. But essentially, it's someone that's not really contributing anything to the subject matter and is just trying to get a rise out of you. Essentially,
Usually a negative Nelly is what I would call them.
yes.
Right? They're just bringing negative to the engagement.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
how do you know what I will show you all that, how to find out which hashtags are trending when we walk through Twitter. And I will also show you, Tina, how to demonstrate how to check hashtags.
Excellent. Okay, so moving on with some of those do's and don'ts and a few questions. Surprisingly, at least it was for me, Twitter is the largest social media outlet for health services research, which is, where I'm focused anyhow with Accords. And I was kind of surprised by that because when I got started, I do not have a personal Twitter page, never have, but I've managed company pages for many years. So I'm familiar with Twitter and know how to use it and advertise through it. So when I started, I created the Accords Twitter page last March. And as you can see here, as of yesterday, we only have 381 followers. Whereas last week when I checked, when we first put together this presentation, it was 355. So 381, especially with some of the rock stars you're going to be seeing later, that may not sound all that impressive, but to me it is because number one, it's more than 0. And we are growing by 1 to 2 followers almost daily. Also, our followers are focused and dedicated audience who want to learn about Accords, our events, our research, and so on. And they're within the same industry and field. And then the other thing is I care more about the monthly summaries than I do about our daily followers. As you can see here in December, we had over 30,000 folks see information about us, and over 370 visited our profile and then hopefully clicked our website to learn more about us. So that to me is much more impressive to know if what we're doing is getting out there and people are interested. And then the other thing too is we recently integrated our Twitter feed on our website in a couple of different places to also help grow just the reputation and the knowledge about Accords if they come visit our website. But let's take a step back and have Jewel explain a bit more about Twitter and how to create and successfully use your account.
All right, so the Twitter basics. Twitter is, as I said, is really one of the simplest platforms that you all can use. It's also widely popular. There are over 330 million people on Twitter, and Twitter is the 11th most visited website in the world. So while Twitter was once known for its 140 character limit, within the last couple of years, they increased that to 280, which actually makes a big difference. While visuals aren't included in the character count, links, mentions, and hashtags do. So keep that in mind when you're posting. And I will show you how to do this, don't worry. As we said before too, hashtags dominate Twitter. It's how trending conversations are started, and it serves as a gateway for you to use them. This week alone, for example, the mental health hashtag has reached 6.3 million Twitter users, and the hashtag MPSI has had over 6,000 interactions and has reached over 850,000 users. And if you are on Twitter, if you've never been on Twitter, feel free to just drop a comment. I'd love to see how many of you all are on the platform or really what you'd like to get out of this.
Right.
All right, so prior to setting up your account, you got to think about really your social strategy a little bit. Do you want to have a pulse on the latest information in your field? Do you want to connect with past and current colleagues? I made an account presentation to show you what to do from the very beginning. And I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen and show you the Twitter platform from how to set it up to its dashboard so you can really understand the platform better. Go.
Do I need to? No, you've got it, right?
I got it.
There
All right.
you go.
Everyone can see that? So before I dive into the homepage itself, I'm going to go ahead and go to our profile page here. So as you can see, I just made it. It's completely blank. So once you are prompted to create an account, you want to edit your profile. So just like with Facebook or maybe any other platform that you've been on, you upload your photo and then you can add your name, your bio. So I can actually say, see you and shoot social media manager, your location. And here with the website block, you can put, a link to publications page that you're on, your faculty website, what have you, whatever you feel comfortable with. So then you save that. All right, so now we'll go into the main page on Twitter. So currently I'm only following CU Anschutz Medical Campus and 5280 Magazine just to have a little variety on the homepage. And so essentially when you're scrolling down your timeline, you will see the most recent post in chronological order. So for example, our CU Anschutz account, we shared this an hour ago. Now, if I wanted to engage with this post in any way, you can comment here, which I won't do. You can also retweet it, which allows you to share the content directly to your page, and then you can like it as well. All right, and so on this right-hand side, you see with what's happening, which is basically the latest, trending information. And so you can also access this area by also going to the Explore tab. So for you, this page is really just suggested to you based on algorithms, based on who you interact with, what post you like, what content you share. Since COVID-19, they've had a dedicated COVID-19 slot. And then trending. So this is what I've been talking a lot about, which is what you can see. Really, it shows like the most how many tweets have been engaged with this type of conversation. So for example, we'll go to, let's find one. We'll just go to Robinhood. Okay, so these are the most, it sorts it here by top. So like posts with the most engagements related to this content. And then you can also go by latest, how many, 2 seconds ago, 2 seconds ago. And then people, which would be like the Robinhood account, and then photos, videos, what have you. So let's go back to home and we'll start with a tweet. So once you're ready to tweet, it's pretty simple. You'll see here, my first tweet. And sometimes it takes a moment, but it will show you the character limit here, which is really helpful. So you'll know if you've gone over. If you haven't, there's no guessing with that. And then for the hashtags, you simply just put the pound sign, and then you can say first tweet. And what's also nice is that Twitter will suggest tweets for you based on just what's used popularly. First tweet, that's enough. And so you can just tweet. They also have the emoji section, which you can use, the gift feature, which I mentioned, where you can search for anything and it'll just upload. And it's as simple as that. You would just press tweet. And if there's any other questions, I can't see the chat box, but while we're here, I'm happy to revisit things, look into anything else, or we can move on.
We do have one question. Let's see. When sharing your research publications, do you recommend a de novo post or using the ones that the journal tees up for you, whether on Twitter or other outlets?
What, a de novo post?
I think that's just the original from the publication, but maybe creating your own post. Oh, I see. Creating your own post or retweeting and maybe using the publication's post.
I recommend both.
Yeah.
Retweeting, obviously you want to support accounts that are mentioning you, because that's great and that's how you continue to foster those collaborations. But then you also want to add your own personality to your journal. Why are you excited about it? What value does this have to the public? So I definitely recommend doing both.
Yeah, and do you want to show them how to bring in a link?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then, so what I do a lot of times, because Accords has so many publications out there, we've actually started just doing a Friday shout out of some of our different publications. I'll tag the publication's Twitter account if they have it. And then obviously the link and hashtags as well. And then I'll tag our researcher if they have a Twitter account in that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just pulled up one of our latest publications from the CU Anschutz newsroom. So I simply just copied the link. And then when I want to share what's happening, you can Command V or paste. And so this is what I mentioned to earlier with the Twitter card. If you don't have a photo to upload or something like that, this also gives you a visual element. And what's nice with it sharing links, all you have to do is click that. And so I could say here, wow, amazing research done by CU Anschutz. And so then that will show up, CU Anschutz. And me as the CU Anschutz social media manager, I would get a notification that this random Jewel account gave us a shout out. And so I would want to mention us. And then let's say, since this is a COVID-19 related story, let's put some hashtags about COVID-19. And what's really cool here too is you can see that COVID-19 is trending, COVID is trending, and the COVID vaccine has had over 670 tweets in the last hour. So that's a great indication to know of when you're sharing it, what's relevant, and how you can become part of those larger conversations. And then you just tweet.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
gonna
I'm gonna,
stop sharing
yep, I'm
now.
taking back over. Um, Now, we do have one more question, but I'm going to wait till we get to the end because we're going to talk a little bit about some tips and tools, and it might address some of that
Yeah.
question that we currently have up right now. So moving on to some tips and tools. I think, Jewel, you already mentioned some of them, but you want to start us off?
Yeah, so as you saw, like your profile bio is a chance to tell people who you are and what you do, and making sure you have a profile picture, sharing as little or much personal information as you'd like, and also mentioning departments or schools that that you work for and that you're part of. And you can also include the hashtags as well in the bio if you have a specialty.
Yeah, someone had asked earlier about putting a link to their Colorado profiles page, which, shows all their research, and you
Yeah.
can totally put that in there. You can put when you set it up, it may only give you one field to put in a URL, but you can add additional URLs in your description on the bio as well.
Okay, and defining your tone, while this is somewhat more applicable to, brand accounts like See You and Shoots, we strive to be cheerfully confident, compassionate, inspiring, and inclusive. We also have different tones for different platforms. For example, on Instagram, we're more playful. We shared a Bernie meme last week, but then on Facebook, our audience is different. With Twitter, we actually engage with our faculty quite frequently and trying to share the work that you all are doing. So really it's, just have an idea of how much you want to share, how little, and how personable you want to be on your platform.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about timing. And I know you had mentioned that previously. As a one-man show for Chords, I can't get on Twitter every day and try and tweet and stay on top of all of what our researchers are doing. So I actually use a third-party software called Hootsuite, which allows me to schedule my tweets and also other social media platform posts. So that way I can schedule a whole month in advance and get 2 to 3 posts in a week. Some of it, most of that is organic. And then when I do get on Twitter or I find out that someone's mentioned us, I'll also do retweeting. But what would you add to that, Jewel?
Yeah, I would say retweeting, with our account, I try to share an organic post, one that we've made at least once a day, but not everyone obviously has that bandwidth. So I think if you're able to write an original post 3 to 5 times a week, but then retweet throughout the week as much as you're able to, that's a great way just to show that you're active and engaged with the platform.
Yep. And then I think the times of day, I think it changes for every industry and it just kind of depends. But what I've noticed is obviously big in this industry is, Monday through Friday is obviously a more trending time. And then between kind of 10 and 2 p.m. are the hot times. But, if something huge comes about on the weekend, especially in our field related to vaccinations or COVID or whatnot, then you want to jump on doing something on the weekend as well. Do you tweet on the weekends, Jules, for the university?
Yeah, we tweet every day. Absolutely. And also with the timing too, it has been known like um Wednesday lunchtime, Thursday
Mm,
afternoon, and those sorts of things. But you'll also kind of know based on your following, if you're following colleagues and things like that, you kind of have a good idea of what their schedule is going to be because it's probably similar to yours in some regard.
right.
And with timing too, we might not have anything planned for that day. But then if I see that COVID-19 is trending, how it is right now, I would want to go find a COVID-19 related news release that we've written and share that on our platform.
The other thing I've done too is, so we have this one program, it's a new graduate certificate program for D&I science, and we have a lot of key faculty that are involved in it, and they all have Twitter accounts. So I have even shared with them the dates and times that I've made Twitter posts so that they're prepared and they can go in if they're not on it all the time. They can go in and then retweet it and also help move it along as well. There is a question. There is
Yeah,
a question about Hootsuite, and I can show that too. I have it up if we need to. But is there such a thing as too much retweeting? Do you want to limit the amount?
yeah.
Good
So
question.
that's a great question. Throughout the day, I retweet, I would say 3 to 5 times, depending on what content we are mentioned in. Um, but I would say there is a limit. If you're on Twitter and you just start retweeting 10 things in a row, your followers are going to just see boom, 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 boom. So one thing that I like to do is like a post that I want to retweet. So I'm still engaging with them. And then maybe later on, after some time is let up, then retweet. So I would say, yeah, no more than 10 retweets a day, but it's
In
not
one
even
sitting.
about the amount of retweeting. I think it's the time in which you're retweeting, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's good. Let's talk a little bit more about that as far as what you're tweeting, the professional versus personal. I know that that's on the registration. We had a lot of people asking about that.
Yeah, for sure. Professional versus personal. Obviously, if you're wanting to use a social media platform to promote your work, it does err on the side of being a professional account. However, what a lot of people do is in their bio, they mention something like the views on my account, are not those that represent my university, or, some language like that. But ultimately, you obviously want to follow the guidelines within the social media platforms that you're joining, and use your best judgment. Really, you know, you don't want to get in feuds or, engage with the trolls, and really just make sure that like you're remaining tasteful. If you have to think twice about responding or engaging with something, it's probably in your best interest not to, or just give it some time and wait till, your reaction, till that part in your brain says to let it go.
And you had also told me that the university encourages providers and scientists and whatnot to create their own account
Yeah,
because you want them to create their own brand and get out there. So it's encouraged.
absolutely.
There's no restrictions of saying don't do it. You can only post through your division or school.
Not at
Um,
all.
but I, but I do have a couple of faculty that have two Twitter accounts. One is strictly personal. She has it locked down. I don't even know it. And then she also has a professional one where she is pushing her research and views and stuff that way.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole goal of this presentation is to encourage you all to join Twitter, because I mean, the
Yeah.
more voices that we have on that platform, the more it grows our brand and
Yes.
highlights your expertise and your experience.
And so that's the other thing is the best thing that you can do, and this is what I did when I started the Accords Twitter page, is I started looking for people in using those hashtags in the same industry, also influencers, and started following them and engaging with their posts. And then that also helps us, grow our brand and reputation. So that's a key thing to do, is just follow, follow, follow. And a lot of times those folks will follow back once they realize you're not a bot, which was one of our questions. How much of Twitter traffic is from real people versus bots?
Yeah,
I
that's a
don't know
great
if I know
question.
that answer.
I don't have the statistics with me at the moment, but
Right.
I think it's pretty easy to differentiate if it's a real person you're interacting with versus a bot. I mean, there are, some science related bot accounts where they'll share anything, any publication related to, you know, cardiology, for example. So it's more like a news aggregate. And anyone like posting spam related things, you can decipher that that's a bot. Real people will have a strong bio, they'll have a history on the platform. You can see who they're engaging with and also take note of who's following them as well. So that's a great way to, determine real or bot.
Right. And then the last thing is pinning, but I think you're going to show us some examples here. And as you're taking over the screen again, because just we're a little tight on time, I did want to address that one question I'd like to hear more about Twitter norms for interaction. Are there tips for engaging with other people, which hopefully we answered. I think following is big, liking relevant posts and folks in the
Retweeting,
industry. Yep,
commenting
retweeting,
back,
commenting.
really using the platform how you would Facebook in a sense, how you comment with family and friends pictures, you'll send emojis to one another, really using that space in a very similar way.
And then they
Yeah.
asked about checking with people before you tag them. I do not do that just because they have a public Twitter account. And I mean, usually I'm tagging people that are already connected with us, but if I'm tagging other companies or like conferences, I just tag them. I think they're thrilled to have a tag from somebody that they're not familiar with because it helps their social presence, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. And I mean, for personal level, like you can also restrict people from tagging you in photos and put some privacy filters in place. So you're not on the receiving end of not being tagged in something that you necessarily don't want to be.
Right.
Yeah. So here are a few Twitter rock stars of CU Anschutz. I don't even believe I've met all of these people in person or anything, but I've just managing Twitter, I've been able to see uh, their activity on Twitter, and I just want to give you some examples. So here is Emmy Betts. She's with the CU Emergency team, and she's very active in firearm prevention research and everything. And as you can see here, she just shared this last week, and it's come join our research. I'm thrilled to have an opening. She mentioned her department account as well as this research organization that she's actively part of. She included the full details, the link to the career section, and then a nice graphic. Here's another active Twitter user. You can see here, he has his title, he has mentioned us, his department, and then he's also included some hashtags as well because he works and studies zebrafish. And you can just scroll down here. For example, this is the pinned tweet that we were talking about. So in November, he, shared that he was excited to be part of this. And so the first thing that happens when I go to his account, that's the first thing I see because he decided to pin it. We can scroll down again. You can see he's retweeting pretty frequently. Thanks, Christian, for retweeting us. And so I know when I'm visiting his profile that he's active and he's, staying up to date on Twitter. Here's another example of leveraging the power of trending conversations. So Christy Towers, it was Black and Cancer week, and Black and Cancer roll call was trending for all, Black faculty researchers that do work with cancer for them to be part of. So she said she's excited to introduce herself. She tagged us. She mentioned the main account that was hosting this, as well as the 2 hashtags. You can see she also included pictures of herself, and she had, 100 retweets, almost 600 and more than 660 likes, and, people were commenting throughout, which is great. And here's another example. So Casey Green, I actually found out that he was joining CU Anschutz through Twitter. So you can see that he's another example of a pinned tweet. He said, I'm thrilled to be joined by Sean Davis, who is another person that has Twitter that has joined CU Anschutz, and mentioned, Cancer Center Medical School and us. And he decided to take a screenshot of the full news story and also include a link. And he's had, a lot of engagement with that. And you can see that, he's retweeting pretty regularly as well. So he's engaged on the platform. And here we have too, Jessica. You can see that she comments infectious, or in her bio, she has her title. She's the tag towards research, which is great. And then she also has vaccines work, which has been a great, campaign to take part of, and other tweets as well. And you can see she's retweeting pretty frequently. And this is a great example that you don't always have to curate your own content to grow your following and see that she's active on her account.
Okay, let me take back. And there we go. And we have the honor of having one of our own Twitter rock stars from Accords on the call today. And I got to figure out how to unmute her. But I'm going to guess that before December 12th, she may not have been quite the number, she may not have seen quite the number of follows or engagement with her tweets as she does now.
I've unmuted her.
Oh, you're so good.
Hey, Laura.
Hi, Dr. Laura. Can you share your Twitter viral story?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So yeah, I had about 1,500 followers before I tweeted this thing. And now you can see from the screenshot, I guess it's 3,900 now. So that's one of the effects of writing a viral tweet, is that you get a lot more followers. And of course, you know, it goes up wildly and then comes down as people kind of realize, oh, right, she's just a scientist and she's not going to be tweeting viral tweets every day. Yeah, but I mean, so I read this story in the Wall Street Journal, as many people did. That was sort of an obnoxious story telling Dr. Jill Biden, to take the doctor off of her Twitter account name and to stop referring to herself as Dr. Jill Biden because she only had a PhD in education. And a friend of mine sent it to me in a text and I read it and I was kind of annoyed, like many people were, by it. And I just thought, you know, I've been thinking about changing my Twitter name. You can see it right below my face, to doctor or PhD, or in some way indicating that I have an advanced degree, because as a woman who looks kind of young and I tweet about science, people sometimes think I'm a graduate student still, even, or, you know, far more junior than I am. So I've been thinking for a long time about adding some signifier to my name. And I tweeted just as I was jumping in the car, like really, I didn't think about this at all, which made me kind of scared once it started to go viral. But I was jumping in the car to go shopping and I thought, you know, I'm just going to get on my phone and change this really quick. And I tweeted, today I added doctor to my profile name. Thanks, Wall Street Journal, for the nudge. I specifically did not tag the Wall Street Journal. So I could have done at Wall Street Journal, and I did not, because I did not want the Wall Street Journal and then all of their followers to see this. I didn't want it to go viral, and I just didn't want it to get all that much exposure. But there was something about the timing of this tweet that it got liked by a few people, got retweeted by a few people, and by the end of the weekend, it had 160,000 likes.
I'm sure you had to turn off your notifications.
Yeah, it was really anxiety provoking.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I had to go back to the tweet a number of times because it was the intersection of science and politics. And I try to tweet about science. I sometimes pepper in a little bit of subtle politics, but not really. I try to stay away from that as much as possible because I don't want to be a divisive figure, draw the ire of anyone whose research I could potentially benefit, who could benefit from the research that I'm doing, who might be interested in it. So
Yeah,
I was
and Jewel, you had said that. Oops, sorry.
Oh
Go
yeah,
ahead,
yeah,
Jewel.
that's fine. Yes.
Yeah. No, and I think like you were tasteful about it, you know, and professional, like you added it. And it's just a great example of being part of a trending conversation without even trying to be, you know.
Right. And that's
yeah.
it's the exciting aspect of Twitter, but it's also something to keep in mind that every time you tweet something,
Yep.
think about what you're putting out there and the potential for it to go viral. I was really lucky with this tweet because there were a bunch of trolls that started responding, but many of the other people who were also commenting on it were shooting down the trolls faster than I could even read their comments. So it was a really very positive experience, all told. I didn't get jumped on by trolls. I didn't get hate mail. Oftentimes people will get hate mail if they have a really viral, divisive tweet. And this didn't do that. So I felt like I kind of dodged a bullet there. In a way.
Absolutely. Now, if it's your research going viral or your work, that's one thing, of course.
Yeah.
But I totally understand that this is a sensitive topic, but you were tasteful about it. You didn't belittle anyone or get involved. You were just saying like, thanks, I'm gonna do this. So well done.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my story.
Thanks, Laura.
Yep.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
So, let's see, why is that not? There we go. Going to probably go through LinkedIn very quickly so we still have time for questions. I'm not getting on the platform. And I'll let Jewel answer the chats or monitor the chats while I quickly go through LinkedIn. So why should you get linked? While it's not as popular as Twitter in the field of medical research anyhow, it's still a place of online professionalism that everyone should be on. So think of LinkedIn as your own personal resume website that you can use for free. As long as you keep it updated, it showcases the depth of your education, your passion, your experiences, your awards, your publications, your research, everything. You can even customize the URL to have your name in it. So this is your personal brand for your professional life. It's like Facebook a little bit, but without the drama or opinions, and it's only for professionals. Plus, it also helps get your Google searches, helps your name appear higher up in Google searches if you have a LinkedIn profile. The other thing is career. Not that anybody on this call is looking to work elsewhere, because we all love where we are, but it is rare to apply anywhere without providing a LinkedIn profile for an autofill resume or for others, you're hiring folks to stalk you on LinkedIn. And it's one of the key online places for job postings. So if you're in HR, this is key to get job postings out there. They have a very strong job board and you can apply using your LinkedIn profile. Networking obviously is very big. You meet folks in the industry and beyond, and you connect with them. Or even other companies or universities or institutions, you can search for them here and follow them. So it acts like an online Rolodex, but with pictures. Hopefully the younger folks know what Rolodex is and I'm not aging myself further. And then it does have a news feed that will be filled with just the news and topics that you want to learn about based on who your contacts are, any groups or interests that you join or follow, along with your industry. So it's real easy to sign up. You just go to linkedin.com. You mainly just need your email, name, and I would have your Vita or your resume nearby just to easily fill in some of the sections. And you want to connect your institution. So you can see on the right-hand side, Accords has a division. We have a division page in LinkedIn. So when you go to fill in that you work at Accords, for example, you click that and then it automatically shows your division as well. It's important, just like Twitter, to have a profile image so people, when they're searching, they know it's you and it's not a scam account, especially if you have a popular name like John Smith. You want to have a picture in there or even a middle initial or other taglines that can help distinguish it's you. And when you go to sign up, it's going to ask you just some very basic questions in the beginning. You can always skip and go back later, but you are going to want to put in your industry, which is healthcare/hospitals. They have a list of a whole bunch of ones, and it's going to ask you to follow some recommended sources in that field. So Mayo Clinic might show up, CDC, and then boom, that's my test account. It's done and you're set up. So real quick, what's the difference between a department and a personal page? So on the left, I created the Accords LinkedIn page shortly after the Twitter, and it just asks you some very basic questions about the organization and whatnot. And then on the right, and I'm not trying to promote my own LinkedIn page by any means, but that's what the personal one will look like, and allows you again to promote your Vita and a little bit about yourself and your research. So for example, on a personal page, you can see you've got experience as a topic, your education, honors, if you speak a different language, your skills, endorsements, and then the accomplishments is where you would put in your publications, your patents, the courses you teach, and all of that. Sorry, I'm going real quick. I just want to make sure we have questions for stuff. So, wait, did I say? So that, oh, a few other tips for LinkedIn. Each time you have a career move, I would recommend asking one person that you trust and that has a good understanding of your work ethic to write you a LinkedIn recommendation. And make sure you join groups of like interests so that ensures you get relevant news. Hashtags aren't really used in LinkedIn, although you can still use them. And you can tag others, especially companies and institutions in your post as well, but you need to be connected to them in LinkedIn. So, all right. So before we move on to questions, and if we have time, I'll even show a little bit of Hootsuite. Jewel, do you want to go over just some of the key points from today?
Absolutely. So social media has transformed the world we live in. It's not only the place for online communication, but it's becoming a place that people are seeking to get the latest news, information, and especially within the last year, human connection. Uh, it's really important to remember through all this to have fun. Rather than looking at joining social as a potentially daunting task, look at it as an opportunity for you to engage with others. Become familiar with the platform you're using. Implement somewhat of a strategy and follow the do's and don'ts as a basic guidelines. One thing that I really like to do too is look to others who are performing well in your field, whether they're colleagues or publications, things like that, and be sure to follow them and take note of what ends up doing really well and what is it about that they're doing that did well. Why? Of course, don't be shy about giving yourself or a colleague a shout out and celebrating achievements. And ask questions and just try to enjoy the process along the way. Oh, you're muted, Katie.
Sorry about that. Okay, so I was just saying that we have about 6 minutes left, I believe. And oh, there's a dog. That's a beautiful dog.
Oh, it was a cat, but thank you.
Oh, it was a cat. Sorry, I only saw the tail real brief. So I can show a little bit of, I lost the chat box somewhere. But let me just show real quickly the Hootsuite screen. Is this showing? Jewel, do you see the Hootsuite? Okay. So this is just an example, and these are grayed out just because this is in the past. But so this is December, and you can see that I've posted in both LinkedIn and Twitter in some of these. Depending on the post, I only did Twitter, but it allows you to do other posts as well. This is the following week. So some of these are all scheduled posts that I had put out there. We had a lot going on in December. So it was easy actually to be able to promote some things. And then, then we just did a little thing like that. But even this week, so January is a little slower. You'll see I only have 2 scheduled, but I often get into Twitter and retweet other things that are trending. And what's beautiful about that, so here's an upcoming post that's on its way, my Friday shout outs. But also in Hootsuite, you can see your different streams of your different platforms. So we have 2 Twitter accounts. One is for our Pragmatic Science Conference, CopperCon, and then we also have an Accords Twitter. So you can see all of that. I can see what new followers are posting. I can retweet right from here, all in one screen. Okay, so that's Hootsuite. Okay, questions? Are there any questions in the chat?
I don't believe so, but yeah, feel free to ask anything.
And I'm going to just try and find the chat, which I have lost in my screen. There it is. 2. Let's see. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Yep, she's got her Twitter, and I would encourage folks, even from today, go in and see who the CU is following or Accords is following, and then decide. It'll give you like a very brief bio of the person, and you can just click a quick follow and start following them as well.
And
Okay.
thank you, Jessica and Rose and everyone for the kind words. We're glad you enjoyed this.
Yeah. I do like Hootsuite. There are other platforms out there. Hootsuite is free and up to a certain amount. So if you think you're going to be tweeting more than, I don't know what their free limit is. I've never hit it. If you think you're going to be tweeting more than like, TweetDeck is another one. Yes. If you think you're going to be tweeting more than 40 tweets a month and you're going to have more than 10 different platforms, you can't use Hootsuite for free, but I'm all about free. So, all right. Well, I appreciate everyone joining in today. Look for our email with the survey link, and we'll have a link to the recording and share the slides as well. Huge, huge thanks and kudos to Jewel for joining today, and Laura for sharing her Twitter Rockstar story as well.
Yeah, thank you all for your time, and I hope to see you on Twitter. Be sure to follow us and I'll follow you back.
Thanks, everyone.